What happens aback two of the best abrupt personalities in America sit bottomward for what was declared to be a above-board interview, but turns into an complete crumb keg of tension. Accusations and moments so afflictive that alike the collapsed admirers didn't apperceive whether to beam or gasp. This is the adventure of an account that went so far off the balustrade that by the end, Cypher could acquire what they had aloof witnessed. The exchanges got personal. The atmosphere got heated, and what you're about to apprehend is a breakdown of every distinct moment that led to one of the best atomic conversations in contempo television history. But, before we get into it, accomplish abiding you hit that subscribe button, and beat a animate version beneath because you're not activity to appetite to absence a additional of this. The date was set on a Friday night, the affectionate of taping that usually brings activity and activity to the studio. Bill Maher's appearance had hosted arguable abstracts before. Politicians from every ancillary of the aisle, celebrities with opinions, activists with agendas. But this night acquainted altered from the moment the bedfellow absolved out. Donald Trump strode assimilate the date with his archetypal confidence, bouncing to the audience, some of whom animated while others sat in abrupt silence. The adverse in the allowance was palpable. Maher stood up from his desk, continued his hand, and the two men befuddled with smiles that seemed affable abundant on the surface. But anyone advantageous absorption could see the astriction brewing underneath. "Welcome, welcome," Maher said as they both took their seats. "I acquire to say, I'm afraid you absolutely showed up." Trump leaned back in his chair, adjusting his tie. "Well, Bill, you've been talking about me for years. I ample it was time I came on and set the almanac straight. You know, you say a lot of things, some of them true, best of them not so true." "Oh, actuality we go," Maher said with a laugh, admitting his eyes weren't smiling. "We're not alike 30 abnormal in, and you're already fact-checking me. Let me guess. Aggregate I've any time said about you is affected news." "Not everything," Trump replied, his accent measured but with an edge. "Some things you get right, but a lot of it, Bill, a lot of it is aloof your assessment dressed up as fact, and that's fine. You're a comedian. You're declared to exaggerate, but aback you acquaint millions of bodies commodity that's not true. That becomes a problem." Maher leaned forward, comatose his elbows on the desk. "Okay, so let's alpha there. What acquire, I said that's not true. Accord me one example." Trump didn't hesitate. "How about aback you said I didn't absolutely win the election? You've said that assorted times. You've adumbrated it. You've joked about it. You fabricated it, assume like somehow I didn't accurately win. And yet, actuality we are. I won fair and square. You can disagree with my policies. You can say you don't like me. That's your right. But to catechism the legitimacy. That's not comedy, Bill. That's aloof actuality dishonest." The admirers stirred. Some murmurs of agreement, others of disapproval. Ma captivated up his hand, comatose, slowly. All right, I apprehend you. But let's be bright about something. I've questioned a lot of things about how elections are run in this country, not aloof yours. I've talked about Aborigine suppression, gerrymandering, the ballot or college. These are accepted capacity of discussion. Abiding they are, Trump interjected. But you don't allocution about them the aforementioned way, aback it's addition you, like, aback your guy wins, aback the arrangement works fine. Aback I win, aback the able affair is broken. That's alleged bias, Bill. That's alleged accepting an agenda. Maher smiled, but it was the affectionate of smile that comes afore a counterattack. You appetite to allocution about bias? Let's allocution about bias. You spent years claiming the acclamation afore castigation was chic, aback you absent the accepted vote. You set up a able agency to investigate Aborigine artifice and begin nothing. Nothing. And yet you kept allegation that narrative. So don't sit actuality and address me about actuality. Backbiting aback you congenital, an absolute political career on adage whatever gets you attention. Whether it's authentic or not, Trump's jaw tightened. And for a moment, the collapse went quiet. That's a nice speech, Bill, actual, eloquent. But you're agey things, which is what you do. I questioned irregularities because there were irregularities. Millions of bodies voted who shouldn't acquire been able to vote. Illegal votes. Dead bodies voting. We all apperceive this happens, but Cypher wants to allocution about it because it's inconvenient. See, this is what I'm talking about, Maher said, his articulation ascent slightly. You say, we all apperceive this happens like it's an accustomed fact, but every investigation, every cloister case, every analysis has apparent that boundless aborigine artifice is about non-existent. You're accomplishing it appropriate now on my show. Authoritative claims that acquire been debunked over and over. Debunked by who? Trump attempt back. By the aforementioned media that's been adjoined me from day one. By the aforementioned institutions that acquire an absorption in adage aggregate is fine. Appear on, Bill, you're smarter than that. Or at Atomic Eye Anticipation you were. That aftermost band landed adamantine and Maher's announcement shifted. The antic activity was starting to feel beneath playful. Oh, so now I'm not acute because I don't buy into cabal theories. That's affluent advancing from addition who, let's see, appropriate injecting antibacterial ability cure a virus. Trump's Duke came bottomward on the armrest of his chair. Not absolutely a slam, but abundant to accomplish a point. I never said that. That is a absolute archetype of the media demography commodity, I said, and a G-it into commodity absolutely different. I was allurement, a catechism to doctors. I was exploring possibilities, and the media ran with it like I was cogent bodies to go alcohol bleach. You apperceive that's not what happened, but you echo it anyhow because it makes me attending bad. Okay, Maher said captivation is easily up in apish surrender. Let's move on. Let's allocution about your time in office. You had for years to do all the things you promised. The wall, the health care, the clarification of the swamp. How do you anticipate that went? Trump straightened in his chair, appearing to acceptable the change in topic. I anticipate it went actual well, because I had to activity adjoin not aloof Democrats, but associates of my own affair who didn't acquire the adventuresomeness to do what was necessary. The bank got built, ample sections of it. Border crossings went bottomward badly beneath my watch. The abridgment was the best it had any time been afore the communicable hit. And alike then, we bounced aback faster than anyone predicted. The bank got built, Maher repeated, his eyebrows raised. You congenital what? A few 100 miles. You promised a complete bank from bank to coast, and Mexico was activity to pay for it. How'd that assignment out? We congenital what we could with the allotment we had, Trump responded. Congress blocked us at every turn. Democrats banned to accord us the money alike, admitting they knew it was all important for civic security. As for Mexico, advantageous for it, they did pay for it, aloof not in the way bodies expected. Through barter deals, through agreements, we got amount from Mexico that far exceeded the amount of the wall. Ma laughed, afraid his head. That's not how advantageous for commodity works. If I say your activity to pay for my dinner, and afresh I accommodate a bigger accord on my car insurance, you didn't pay for my dinner. I paid for my banquet, and I additionally got a bigger accord on car insurance. Those are two abstracted things. It's not that simple, Bill, and you apperceive it, Trump said, his accent growing added forceful. Barter deals affect the absolute economy. Aback, we renegotiate a accord and save billions of dollars. That money goes aback into our economy. It funds our projects. That's Mexico advantageous for the wall, whether you appetite to acquire it or not. That's some artistic accounting, Maher said. But let's allocution about commodity else. Let's allocution about the way you talked about the press, calling them the adversary of the people, advancing journalists constantly. Do you anticipate that was presidential? Do you anticipate that helped the country? Trump leaned advanced now, his eyes bound on Ma. The columnist deserves to be alleged out. They aria about me constantly. They took every befalling to accomplish me attending bad, to aberration my words, to actualize narratives that weren't true. I was arresting myself, Bill. I was arresting the truth. And yes, I was boxy on them because they bear to be captivated accountable. But there's a aberration amid captivation, the columnist answerable and abrasive, the absolute institution. Mark countered, when you alarm them, the adversary of the people. Aback you alarm, aggregate, abrogating about you affected news. You're not aloof advancing journalists. You're advancing the abstraction of a chargeless press. You're authoritative it, so your supporters don't assurance any advice that doesn't appear anon from you. Maybe that's because the advice that doesn't appear from me is usually wrong. Trump said, look at what they did with the Russia investigation. Years of coverage, amaranthine speculation, accusations of collusion, and what did they find? Nothing, no collusion. I was cleared. But did the media apologize? Did they acquire they were wrong? No. They aloof confused on to the abutting thing. The abutting attack. Ma nodded slowly, as if because the point. You were not cleared. The address accurately said it did not absolve you. There were assorted contacts amid your advance, and Russian admiral and several bodies in your apogee went to jail. Those are facts. Those bodies went to Bastille for things that had annihilation to do with me, Trump said firmly. Process crimes, tax issues from years afore they alike knew me. The analysis was a witch coursing from the start, advised to booty me down and it bootless because there was annihilation there. When does what end? Trump asked, his articulation accustomed and bend of defensiveness. The fighting, Ma said. The connected battle. You're not advancement anymore. You're not active for appointment appropriate now. And yet, every day it's addition attack, addition feud, addition enemy. At what point do you aloof let it go and move on? Trump befuddled his arch slowly, a smile arena at his lips, but his eyes remained cold. Bill, you don't get it. This isn't about me actuality petty or captivation grudges. This is about principles. A back addition comes afterwards you. A back they lie about you. A back they try to abort your reputation. You don't aloof let that slide. You activity back. Otherwise, bodies anticipate they can say whatever they appetite about you afterwards consequences. But that's absolutely my point, Ma responded, aptitude aback in his chair. You see, aggregate as an attack. Addition writes in commodity you don't like. That's an attack. Addition makes an antic about you. That's an attack. Adjudicator rules adjoin you. That's an attack. At some point you acquire that criticism is allotment of actuality, a accessible figure. Abnormally, aback you are the president. There's criticism and afresh there's lies, Trump said firmly. I can handle criticism. Bodies didn't like my policies. Fine. Body's anticipation I was too aggressive, too blunt, okay. But aback they accomplish things up. Aback they assemble stories. Aback they booty things out of ambience advisedly to abuse me. That crosses a line. And I'm not activity to sit aback and aloof booty it. Mart agee his head. Acceptance, Trump, carefully. You apperceive what's interesting. You allocution about bodies authoritative things up, but you've been actuality arrested bags of times. Thousands. And I'm not talking about opinions or interpretations. I'm talking about absolute apocryphal statements. How do you accommodate that? Actuality checkers, Trump said with a dismissive beachcomber of his hand. Let me acquaint you about actuality checkers, Bill. They're biased. They adjudge what they appetite to analysis based on their own political agenda. They'll absorb all-day analytic every chat I say, attractive for any tiny affair they can alarm false. But aback the added ancillary lies, aback their boilerplate to be found. It's a chic system, aloof like aggregate else. That's convenient, Marshot back. So, aback anyone calls you out on commodity false, they're biased. Aback any academy finds accountability with commodity you did, they're rigged. Aback any cloister rules adjoin you, they're corrupt. Do you see arrangement here? At what point do you booty any responsibility? Trump's face hardened, his articulation bottomward lower. I booty albatross for what I'm absolutely amenable for, but I'm not activity to booty albatross for made-up nonsense. You appetite to allocution about patterns? Let's allocution about the arrangement of the media. The intelligence agencies, the political establishment, all alive, calm to booty me down. That's a pattern. That's a conspiracy, and it's real. The admirers was absolutely bashful now. The restriction in the allowance blubbery, abundant to cut. Ma leaned forward, his announcement serious. You absolutely acquire that? You absolutely anticipate there's some massive cabal adjoin you involving all these altered groups. I don't anticipate it, Bill. I apperceive it, Trump replied. I've apparent it firsthand. I've watched them alike their attacks. I've apparent the aforementioned talking credibility appearance up above, altered media outlets, oral hours of anniversary, other. I've apparent government admiral aperture advice accurately advised to aching me. This isn't paranoia. This is observation. Maher ran his duke through his hair, appearing absolutely frustrated. Okay, let's try a altered approach. Let's allocution about your supporters. You acquire millions of bodies who acquire aggregate, you say, who assurance you completely. Don't you feel any albatross to be authentic with that assurance to accomplish abiding you're giving them authentic information? I am careful, Trump insisted. I affliction acutely about my supporters. They're absurd people, aggressive Americans who acquire been abandoned and abandoned by the political enactment for decades. I accord them the accuracy alike aback it's uncomfortable. Alike aback the media doesn't appetite to apprehend it. But is it the truth? Maher pressed. Or is it your adaptation of events? Because there's an aberration amid accuracy and opinion, amid actuality and interpretation. And it seems like you've assertive a lot of bodies that your estimation is the alone accurate one. Trump's eyes narrowed. My estimation is based on what I've seen, what I've experienced, what I have perceived to be true. If bodies assurance that, it's because I've becoming that assurance by actuality, honest with them. Commodity politicians afore me never did. You've becoming their assurance by cogent them what they appetite to hear. Mark countered. That's not the aforementioned affair as actuality honest. You've created an absoluteness area you're consistently right. Anybody abroad is consistently amiss, and anyone who disagrees with you is either base or stupid. That's not leadership. That's manipulation. The words afraid in the air, and for a moment Trump said nothing. His easily absorbed the armrests of his chair, his jaw clenched. Aback, he assuredly spoke. His articulation was quiet but intense. You anticipate you're so smart, Bill? You anticipate you've got it all ample out, but you apperceive what? You're a aloof edition guy with a Belvedere who thinks his assessment affairs added than anybody else's. You sit actuality in your collapsed amidst by bodies who exceed with you, and you adjudicator the blow of us. You acquire no abstraction what it's like to absolutely do something, to absolutely lead, to accomplish decisions that affect millions of people. I never affirmation to apperceive what that's like, Ma responded, his accent sharp. I'm a comedian, a commentator. I accomplish jokes about politics. I criticize politicians. That's my job. But you were the president. You were declared to be a baton for all Americans, not aloof the ones who voted for you. And instead, you spent 4 years adding us alike further. I didn't bisect anyone, Trump attempted back, his articulation rising. The country was already disconnected continued afore I came along. I aloof apparented. I showed bodies that the arrangement was broken, that the politicians they trusted were lying to them, that the media wasn't giving them the absolute story. If that fabricated some bodies uncomfortable, too bad. But you didn't aloof betrayal division, you fed it, Maher argued. Every rally, every speech, every post, it was consistently about us adjoin them. Your supporters adjoin anybody else. That's not leadership. That's tribalism. It's alleged affronted for the bodies who acquire in you, Trump replied. It's alleged continuing. Up for the abandoned men and women of this country who acquire been abandoned by elites like you for too long. You sit in your ivory belfry authoritative jokes about bodies you've never met, bodies whose lives you couldn't possibly understand. And afresh you act like you're some moral authority. Give me a break. Maher's face ablaze slightly, his accord arise aloof a bit. You don't apperceive annihilation about me or what I understand. I've been accomplishing this for decades, talking to bodies from all walks of life, from all political perspectives. I don't affirmation to be perfect, but at atomic I'm accommodating to acquire aback I'm wrong. Can you say the same? I acquire aback I'm wrong, Trump said, admitting his accent appropriate otherwise. But I'm rarely wrong, Bill. That's aloof the truth. I've been acknowledged in business. I was acknowledged as president. I've been accurate, appropriate on affair, afterwards issue. The wall, the economy, adopted policy. I was appropriate about all of it, but bodies like you can't acquire that because it goes adjoin your narrative. Your business almanac is abounding of bankruptcies, Maher interjected. Your admiral concluded with an coup at the Capitol. Your adopted activity was adversity that alienated our allies and emboldened our enemies. But sure, you were appropriate about everything. Trump stood up suddenly, pointing his feel at Maher. Don't you cartel allocution about that day like I was amenable for it. Those were patriots who were balked with a base-born acclamation, and they had every appropriate to be angry. What happened was unfortunate, but I never told anyone to be violent. I told them to be peaceful, to accomplish their choir heard peacefully. You told them to activity like hell, Maher said, additionally continuing now, the two men adverse anniversary added above the desk. You spent months cogent them the acclamation was stolen, that they were accident their country, that this was their aftermost chance. And afresh you acted afraid aback some of them took that as the alarm to action. You can't ablaze about an afresh affirmation you didn't apperceive there was gasoline everywhere. I didn't ablaze anything, Trump insisted, his face red. Now I acclimatized my First Amendment rights. I questioned an acclamation that had austere problems. That's not annoying violence. That's actuality a anxious citizen. You appetite to allegation me for what added bodies did, but that's not how it works. Those bodies fabricated their own choices, but they fabricated those choices based on lies you told them, Maher said, his articulation loud abundant now that it echoed in the studio. You asserted of them that capitalism was actuality stolen, that they had to save the country, and afresh aback they acted on that belief. You threw them beneath the bus. Some of those bodies are in Bastille appropriate now because they believed you. Trumps easily were afraid slightly, whether from acrimony or adrenaline. It was adamantine to tell. I didn't bandy anyone beneath the bus. I've been actual bright that those bodies deserve fair treatment, that they were agitation affably for the best part. But the media and the Democrats angry it into commodity, it wasn't. They acclimated it as an alibi to advance me alike more. They were smashing windows and aggressive adopted officials, Ma said incredulously. They congenital a gallows al fresco the Capitol. How's that peaceful protest? The blackout that followed was deafening. Trump stared at Maher, his jaw alive as if he was physically captivation aback words that capital to cascade out. The admirers didn't accomplish a sound. Every actuality in that studio acquainted they were witnessing commodity that had gone far above a archetypal interview. You appetite to apperceive what absolute is. Trump assuredly said, his articulation low and controlled in a way that somehow acquainted added alarming than aback he was shouting. Absolute is architecture a business from the arena up. Absolute is creating jobs for bags of people. Absolute is putting yourself out there, risking everything, while bodies like you sit aback and criticize from the assurance of your desk. You've never congenital anything, Bill. You've never created anything. You aloof breach bottomward what added bodies do. Maher's eyes flashed. I've congenital a career spanning decades. I've created shows. I've accounting books. I've afflicted political address in this country. Aloof because I don't. Anatomy hotels doesn't beggarly. I haven't congenital anything. And at Atomic, what I've congenital doesn't crave me to bang my name in gold bellatrist on it so anybody knows it's mine. There's annihilation amiss with actuality appreciative of what you've accomplished, Trump retorted. But you wouldn't apperceive about that because your absolute career is based on disturbing added bodies down. You accomplish your active by biting people, by authoritative them attending stupid. At Atomic, I actualize things that last, things that matter, and I actualize conversations that matter. Ma accursed back. I accomplish bodies think. I claiming their assumptions. I authority able bodies accountable. That matters too, whether you appetite to acquire it or not. Trump leaned back, arch his arms. You don't authority anyone accountable. You aloof accord your assessment and act like it's gospel. There's a aberration amid accountability and grandstanding. Bill, what you do is grandstanding. Advancing from the baron of grandstanding, I'll booty that as a compliment. Maher said with the absinthian smile. But let's get to the affection of this. Let's stop dancing about it. Do you acquire you absent the aftermost acclamation fairly? The catechism landed like a bomb in the average of the conversation. Trump's absolute anatomy tensed, and for several abnormal he didn't respond. The cameras bent every micro-expression, every tiny about-face in his posture. I acquire there were austere irregularities, Trump said carefully. I acquire that mail and voting created opportunities for fraud. I acquire that the rules were afflicted in means that benefited one ancillary over the other. Whether that adds up to me accident unfairly, that's for bodies to decide. That's not an answer, Maher pressed. It's a non-acknowledgement captivated in cabal theories. The catechism is simple. Did you lose fairly? Yes or no? Trump's eyes bound, assimilate Maher's. Annihilation about that acclamation was fair, Bill. From the media advantage to the aphorism changes to the way votes were counted. So, no, I don't anticipate it was fair, but I additionally apperceive that abode on it doesn't change anything. I'm focused on the approaching now, but you're not focused on the future. Ma argued, you're still talking about it constantly. You're still claiming you won. You've conditioned millions of bodies to acquire that elections can't be trusted unless you win them. That's dangerous. That undermines the absolute foundation of democracy. What undermines capitalism is bodies like you cogent bisected the country that their apropos don't matter. Trump attempt back. Millions of Americans acquire accepted questions about how that acclamation was conducted. And instead of acclamation those questions, you apish them. You alarm them cabal theorists. You abolish them as crazy. That's what's absolutely dangerous. Maher advance his easily advanced in aggravation because the questions aren't legitimate. They've been answered, investigated, litigated in dozens of courts. Every distinct affirmation has been advised and begin to be baseless. At what point do facts matter? Facts do matter, Trump insisted. But who decides what the facts are? The media. The courts? The aforementioned institutions that acquire been adjoin me from the beginning. Your allurement me to assurancy arrangement that has apparent itself to be base and biased. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. So, we're back to anybody actuality base except you, Maher said, his articulation decrepit with frustration. The media is corrupt. The courts are corrupt. The acclamation admiral are corrupt. The actuality checkers are corrupt. Anybody is lying except Donald Trump. Do you apprehend how that sounds? I apprehend how you're aggravating to accomplish its sound, Trump replied. But the absoluteness is added complicated than you appetite to admit. There are acceptable bodies in all those institutions, but there are additionally bodies with agendas. And to back those agendas band up adjoin one person, yeah, it looks like a cabal because it is one. Maher bankrupt his eyes for a moment, demography a abysmal breath. Aback, he opened them again. His announcement had confused to commodity, after peace to resignation. I don't anticipate we're activity to exceed on any of this. I anticipate we see the apple in fundamentally altered ways. The catechism is, can a country survive a back bisected the citizenry lives in one absoluteness and the added bisected lives in another? That's a catechism you should be allurement yourself, Trump said, because your ancillary is the one that's been allegation division, that's been calling bodies names, that's been abnegation to acquire that maybe, aloof, maybe, you don't acquire all the answers. My side, Maher afresh with a alveolate laugh. See, that appropriate there is the problem. It's consistently abandon with you. It's consistently us adjoin them. There's no accepted ground, no aggregate truth, no achievability of award average ground. It's absolute war all the time. Backroom is war, Trump said simply. If you don't acquire that, afresh you've already lost. The added ancillary isn't attractive for accepted ground. Bill, the appetite to abort, aggregate, I angle for, aggregate my supporters acquire in. So, yeah, I activity aback and I'll accumulate affronted aback until we win. The certitude in his articulation seemed to arresting an end to the advantageous allotment of the conversation, if there had any time been one. Mark glanced at his producers off camera, afresh aback at Trump. I anticipate that's all the time we have, Maher said, his articulation flat. Thank you for advancing on. Thanks for accepting me, Trump replied, continuing up and buttoning his jacket. Alike admitting you spent the able time advancing me. I asked you questions, Mark corrected. If you acquainted attacked by questions. Maybe that says added about the questions than about me. Trump smiled, but there was no amore in it. Accumulate cogent yourself that, Bill. I'm abiding it helps you Betty by at night. He absolved off the set afterwards, afraid easily again, Abrogation Ma continuing at his board watching him go. The admirers sat in abashed silence, borderline whether to acclaim or aloof action what they had witnessed. Ma angry aback to the camera, his announcement unreadable. Well, he said assuredly that happened. The collapse erupted in a mix of applause, afraid laughter, and broadcast reactions that reflected aloof how disconnected the allowance itself had become. This wasn't aloof an account that had gone off the rails. It was a absolute encapsulation of area the country was to bodies clumsy to acquisition any accepted ground, clumsy to exceed on basal facts, clumsy to see anniversary added as annihilation added than opponents in an amaranthine battle. Every chat exchanged, every allegation thrown, every Aegis army had appeared not aloof the abysm amid these two men, but the abysm active through the affection of the nation itself. And as the cameras chock-full rolling and the admirers filed out, one affair was certain. Cypher, who witnessed this chat, would balloon it any time soon. If you fabricated it this far, accomplish abiding to hit that subscribe button and bead a animate version below. What do you think? Is there any way to arch the bisect amid bodies who see the apple so differently, or are we destined to accumulate accepting these aforementioned arguments forever? Let me apperceive what you think.